Joining us now, she is, of course, you now hear her on the broadcast on ACC Network Extra with some of the Florida State games, among other games that she'll be doing. She may share with us, may not. We'll see. She's still working behind the scenes as we last had her on the live show. Of course, former Seminole great. Helped them get to within a win of the national championship in 2021. Had a great career. Played at Tennessee and Florida State. Had success. One of the few players actually could say have had success in the SEC and the ACC. I speak of Caylan Arnold joining us here at In the Circle. How you doing?
I'm doing so good. Thank you so much for having me again, and thank you for that intro. That was very nice.
We'll talk a little bit about your career a little bit in depth, but first want to start ACC starting this weekend with a few series. It'll get full gear next weekend. What's it like as a player, first of all, that opening weekend in conference? What's it like when conference kind of starts?
It's so exciting because I mean, you've had the build up a little bit. You've maybe gotten to play some of your in-conference teams, earlier in the season. But there's really nothing like when you get in conference. It's like another turn up of the dial, like the level of play goes up, and because you want to win your conference, you want to come out and you want to be the top team. So every game means so much more than previous games. And all the games that you've been playing up to this point have gotten you ready for regular season play. So I know for me, it was always a really, really exciting time. Even though I had been playing, the nerves would kind of come back a little bit as I got ready to play in conference teams. So it was a lot of fun.
Let's talk about some of the storylines in the ACC. We have to begin, obviously, first in Blacksburg. Virginia Tech sweeps NC State. The story there, NC State parted ways with their head coach, Jennifer Patrick Swift, on Thursday. So they've got an interim coach, interim assistant. I mean, as a player, how does a team like North Carolina State move forward as a player and try to rally and make something out of this season with all that has transpired?
It's not going to be easy. It's going to be something that the girls are really going to have to come together and rely on each other, play for the people to their left and to their right, and try not to listen to the outside world and everything that's going on. And, people are asking them questions. What happened? What's going on? What are you guys feeling? And so trying to tune all of that out, focus on the people to their left and to their right, and try to finish this season that they've started as strong as they can. I know that it's going to be difficult because, I mean, in that moment, you've got girls who are probably looking to other places, looking like, hey, like, do I want to stay here? Am I going to end up transferring? Like, what, looking at future possibilities and things like that. And now with the transfer portal, it's so much easier to do that. And so it's going to be difficult for the girls who are completely bought in and all in for NC State. No matter what coach is there, they want to play there, versus the ones who, maybe did come for the coach or really enjoyed the coach or didn't, and were thinking about transferring beforehand. And this kind of solidifies that. So it's something that the girls are probably going to have to sit down and have a meeting and say, like, hey, like, let's not think about the future right now. Let's think about what's happening around us and let's play for each other.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be and then they're going to get speculation all year long about who's going to be the head coach, and we're not going to know that until after the season and things like that. And meanwhile, they drew a difficult assignment going to Blacksburg against the defending regular season champions in Virginia Tech. Let's talk about a few of these teams because we had you on our live season preview show, but now since then we've seen all these teams play some games, so perhaps some of your opinions have changed based on what you've seen, what you follow. I want to start with Virginia Tech. The big question was life after Keely Richard, how the pitching staff would look, with her and, their offense. What's been your thoughts on Virginia Tech, seeing them so far this season and following them as the team that is the defending regular season champions? People forget they were the 3 national seed last year. Your thoughts on Pete DeMore's Hokies?
So I think that it was interesting. Everybody, like you said, was wondering, what is this team going to look like after Keely Richard? Because Keely was such a staple for them, such a leader for them. So I was interested to see how Emma Lemley was going to step up, what she was going to do in the circle. Was she going to be that same type of leader where it was like, I'm going to put this team on my back and I'm going to carry you, like Keely Richard was? And, she's so young. She's only a sophomore. And honestly, I have seen glimpses of that from her. I've seen fight in her, even when, she was getting beat up. I never have seen her really give up. She's still got a fantastic ERA. It's still below 2. It's 1.93. She's doing really, really well. But I think, what's going to have to happen is this team is really going to have to step it up hitting. They're going to have to be able to support her with runs. I mean, their batting average is still great. It's 305, which, is really good. But I think that it's something that they're really going to have to do, is step it up even more so to be able to kind of overcome the loss of what Keeley was able to do for them last year while Emma is trying to find her place.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that progresses into conference play. Obviously, with them this season, they'll play Florida State. In fact, they'll host FSU later in the year. That's one that people have circled there. Let me ask you about the Seminoles. They are not starting ACC play yet this weekend. They don't start till next weekend. You've gotten to see them play up close throughout this season. What's your thoughts on Florida State this season? Had that kind of perplexing, stunning loss at home to Lipscomb that kind of people kind of were like confused a little bit about. But what's your thoughts overall on Lonnie and the Noles in 2023 now that you've seen them on the field?
Right. So, I think early season losses for anybody, yes, you're like, okay, oh my gosh, wow, this team lost to so and so, what the heck? But at the same time, you want to have those early season losses. It doesn't really matter who they are, because you want to be able to learn from them earlier in the season. You don't want to have those types of losses later in the season. So those early losses, you look at them, doesn't matter who they are, because honestly, the game today, everybody is good. Mid-major teams are good. High level teams are good. Anybody can win at any point in time. So that's, it's something that's different than it used to be. There's no games where it's like an automatic win anymore. So looking at those losses saying, okay, here's how we're going to move forward from this. But with Florida State, what I've seen is people really stepping up this year, that, maybe kind of struggled a little bit last year, like Janai Kerr. So Janai Kerr, coming off of her injury, she has been phenomenal at the plate. One of the most consistent hitters as of late for Florida State, done some really big things in some really big games. So I'm really excited to see how she continues. Pitching wise, you've got the return of Catherine Sandercock, who is in a completely different role this year than she's ever been in. She's coming in more so as like a closer, or as somebody who needs to get you out of a tough situation. So what Coach Alameda has been doing is starting a lot of her younger arms to get them experience. And then if they get in trouble, she brings in Kat, because Kat is the upperclassman and she has the experience. And Kat has really embraced that role. And she said, you know what, I want to be the most selfless leader on this team. You put me in any situation that you need me. And so she's been really great in that sense. And freshman wise, McKenna Reed has done awesome so far. She's really come into her own as a freshman and made a big impact for the Noles. The transfer, Katie Dack, has done phenomenal at the plate. I mean, I think she has 7 home runs so far, which is really, really cool. And then Kaylee Harding has just been extremely consistent as well, at the plate and defensively. She's come in some really clutch situations. So I think that the Seminoles look really good. And I think that with each game, they're just continuing to grow and get better.
What's been your thoughts? You mentioned McKenna Reed. She was making some news, if you will, in Clearwater. People were very impressed. You mentioned the Sandercock role. How do you see this playing out in conference? Do you still see this being used, or could you see Kat doing more starts? I know Coach Alameda has talked about innings, saving innings, keeping everybody fresh. How do you see them using their arms? And what's your thoughts on McKenna in particular? Could she be that 1-2 punch, kind of like you were with Sandercock, going back to the Megan King and Hanson days? I mean, Burroughs going along with, obviously, Waldrep, and et cetera, et cetera.
Definitely. I think, that's the reason why Coach Alameda has had her young arms start so often and tried to put them in tough situations, is to prepare them, for the ACC, and, the teams that they're going to face, like, Clemson, who's absolutely just killing it right now on all aspects of everything. So I do see that. I also do see Catherine coming in and starting, more games, maybe the bigger games, maybe trying to go 7. innings, but like you said, Coach Alameda is really big on trying to save the arms, for the postseason. And I do think that this team has the potential to make it all the way to the championship game once again. So I don't know. I think it'll be interesting, but I do think that Coach Alameda's goal is to use all of her arms, as much as she can.
Right, build that experience. Of course,
Hmm.
some of the teams they'll contend with Notre Dame, who will be hosting the ACC tournament, and of course Duke. They played the series this weekend. Duke comes from behind to win the last two games of that series after Notre Dame takes the first game. I got to give you credit. You said on our live show you like Duke. Even though they lost a lot of personnel, they're young, but you like what they have, and you've been proven correct. I saw Duke in person in Clearwater. They've got talent. They seem to be right back in the mix. Marissa Young and company, Sydney Romero in her first year. They're top 20, top 25, and I thought this weekend was even more impressive. As you know, they dropped the first game of the series to Notre Dame. It's hard to beat a team in conference back to back in a situation like that, but they were able to do that. Pretty impressive for a young team. Let me start with Duke. You liked them. Your thoughts are now seeing him on the field with the Blue Devils.
I did. At the beginning, I just had a feeling. I was like, I think Duke is going to be good. Marissa Young, I think, is a fantastic coach. And then, like you said, they brought on Sydney Romero, who I, got to play with in Athletes Unlimited. And the Romero sisters are just softball geniuses. They know so much about the game. And so I knew bringing that in would be a huge asset to those girls. And I think, honestly, one of the biggest things that Duke has been able to do is replace St. George. And what they've done is they've brought in Cassidy Curd, and she has done a really good job of putting this team on her back as a freshman. She has impressed me incredibly, and so I think that Duke is just going to continue to get better. And I think that, Coach Young is a really great coach. Deja Davis, who, didn't have the year last year that she had, but has really come in this year and done great. She's batting over 400. And that's huge. They have a lot of players right now who are doing big things for them.
And that, I know in talking, they feel they could be better, right? Right? They feel like could be better pitcher than she's shown
Yeah.
to this point, right? They think there's still more up they can improve on, which
Yeah.
it could be a frightening thought for the ACC.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we played Duke my senior year in the ACC championship, and they beat us. And I think that was, the first time in 6 years that Florida State had been beat in the ACC championships. That's a fun stat to be known for. But it was so crazy just to see, the fight in that team. They really, really wanted it. And I think that's something that Marissa Young has instilled in all of her players so far, is that fight and that grit. And that's one reason why I picked Duke. That's one reason why I said I think that they're going to come out and really play hard, because I experienced that firsthand.
What's your thoughts on the Fighting Irish and Coach Gump? Took that first game from Duke, dropped them. They've kind of been under the radar this year. They were a team that was in the mix to host last year, came up short. They've been trying to get over the hump and win that regional. They got Becker back in the circle. Obviously, they have the reigning ACC best player, arguably, in Gaskets back. What's your thoughts on the Fighting Irish?
But I think that they're always going to be a contender. Like, playing Notre Dame was not easy by any means. When I played against them, they always put up a fight. They were always somebody that, we had to look out for. They have good pitching. Like you said, they've got Becker back. One of their pitchers, Castor, her ERA is below 1 right now. And she's pitched 30 innings. That's a good number of innings, to have an ERA below 1. So I think that they're always going to be a contender as well. And I think that there's somebody that you have to look out for.
Clemson swept Syracuse. Syracuse actually competed very hard. Shannon Dupkine and company pushed them a little bit, but Clemson's on fire earlier this year. They have the one loss to Tennessee, but Valerie Cagle's played at a high level. John Rittman and that team, they look like they want to get that next level. They've been building this program up. Remember, they won the ACC regular season title, were sent to Alabama in the regional. Last year, they hosted as a national seed for the first time, got to the Supers. I think they're thinking Oklahoma City over there. What's your thoughts on the Tigers?
100%. I said in my, we had our top, picks for the Women's College World Series, and Clemson's in there for me. I think Clemson is legit this year. I think that Valerie Cagle is just crushing in every category. I mean, she's almost leading in everything. Her slugging percentage is 1,000. Her batting average is over 500. And then pitching wise, I mean, she's leading in the ACC and ERA right now with 0.66. Like, she is phenomenal. And like you said, with that loss to Tennessee, I mentioned, in the beginning too, that I thought Tennessee might be at the World Series, just based off of, the returners that they had and the pitching that they had. But it was a close game. I mean, it was a 1-0 game, I believe. And so, I think that's something that on any other day, it could go either way. But yeah, I think Clemson is going to be a huge contender to win ACC title, this year, win the tournament. I think it'll be between them and Florida State, maybe them and Duke. It'll be one of those three, in my opinion. But they're doing phenomenal, and I think Millie is doing a good job. Millie Thompson of hanging in there with Valerie. I mean, her ERA is below 1. So I mean, I think that they're a 1-2 punch.
All right, and you just stole my thunder. I was going to ask you about your thoughts of the teams we've discussed. Who are the ACC championship contenders in your mind, and who are how many of them you think could host a regional, and how many of them can make the World Series?
Yeah, so like I said, Clemson for sure. I think Clemson's a contender to win the ACC. Clemson's a contender to host a regional and be at the World Series. Florida State for sure. I think Florida State's someone that's always in the mix there. And then I think Duke. Like I said, I think Duke is going to be, if they continue on this upward path, they continue to get better. For sure, could see them. I don't know if they'll be at the World Series. I would like to see them at the World Series. That would be really cool to have 3, ACC teams at the World Series. But 100% think they're a contender to win the ACC.
Well, I think it'd be huge too for the league just to get somebody other than Florida State. And even the other coaches I've talked to in the preseason about this, Florida State's done a lot for the league, the growth of this league and the competition that it has. But they've been the only ones that have represented the ACC. I mean, even all the coaches have pointed to that national title that Florida State won as a turning point for the league. But now the next question is, who's going to join them there? Because I think, Caylan, and we talked about this when we had you on the live show, I got a sense from the league they were excited with the year they had last year. It was a great year for the league, considering you had Clemson, Duke, Virginia Tech, FSU, all hosted in the tournament. You had 6 teams make the field. Yet, I felt like some people were like, kind of the way it ended by not having anybody get to Oklahoma City kind of took away from the season. I feel like a lot of the coaches we got to kind of, that's the next step. If you want to get that respect to be right there with the SECs and the Pac-12s, that's the next step, is to get multiple teams in OKC.
Definitely. Yeah, last year it was heartbreaking for me, not having any ACC teams in the World Series, because I really did think last year that it was going to be the first time that there was going to be 2. I thought it was going to be either Virginia Tech or Clemson joining Florida State. And it broke my heart for Keely Richard. I really wanted her to be able to experience the World Series. I think that she definitely deserved that. But, this year, I'm hopeful. I don't want to, I really thought last year was going to be it. I really want this year to be it. But I would love to see, my Seminoles, Florida State at the World Series. And I would also love to see Clemson. And I think that both of those teams could be serious contenders at the World Series.
Let's talk about the other teams in the ACC. Last year, we had Georgia Tech make the NCAA tournament for the first time in a while under, of course, head coach Eileen Morales, who's a Hall of Fame player at Georgia Tech. They've kind of had some ups and downs this season. I got to see Louisville up close this year. We talked a lot with Holly April. Taylor Roby speaks for herself. She's the new home run queen at Louisville. They're healthier this year than they were last year. Got players like Corby Otis that have stepped up. Hannah File, who they like as well. The big question, I think, for them is that number 2 pitcher. They got this freshman from Miami, Zabala, that looked pretty good, has a good arm. But can they stay healthy? That's the question. Give me your thoughts on teams like Georgia Tech. You got Louisville, I mentioned. A team like Virginia, who was also on the cusp last year, made improvements over there under Coach Joanna Harden. North Carolina, Coach Papa, obviously veteran coach. They're off to a bit of a slow start. And the rest of this cast, who else can make some noise based on what you've seen? What's caught your eye about the rest of the ACC so far this season?
Well, you had asked me in the previous podcast that I was a part of, what ACC team did I think was gonna, fly under the radar and then maybe, come out and make a splash. And I chose Louisville because of Taylor Roby, because I played against Taylor Roby. I've seen what she can do firsthand. She is an extreme competitor. She's another one of those pitchers, like, Valerie Cagle, who also hits and, like you said, is a big home run leader for them now. And I think that Louisville is somebody who wants to make a splash and wants to make a name for themselves. I think that they want to be one of those teams in the ACC that's constantly talked about, like Florida State, like Clemson is now, like Duke. And so I think that they could do something big, if they continue, like you said, to stay healthy and to do what they're doing. Georgia Tech, like you said, is made the tournament last year for the first time. They have pitching coach Marty McDaniel, who I got to work with at Tennessee. I think he's phenomenal. I love Marty. So I know that he's working with the pitchers and doing a lot for them. And their new head coach, I think that she is an extreme competitor. I think, Coach Morales is somebody who wants to win, and she wants to put Georgia Tech on the map as well. And when your team is able, to have that type of leader and then buy into it, that's when big things happen.
It's going to be interesting. Do you think the ACC will match the 6 bids like they got last year? Do you think they could get more teams into the field?
I would like to see them match. I would like to see a match. I think that that's definitely a possibility. Um, I think it would blow my mind if they got more. That would be really, really amazing. And I would be super happy for the conference that I was, a part of and graduated from. But yeah, I mean, Clemson, Florida State, Duke, Virginia Tech. I think Louisville has a shot. I think
Notre
Notre Dame
Dame,
could have a
yep.
shot. Yep. I think Pitt, actually. I
They're
think,
improved, aren't
Pitt
they?
has really,
Yeah.
yeah, they have improved incredibly. I mean, I still have nightmares about the the series that we had up there my senior year, because it was a battle. It was a true battle. And they came out on top. They did phenomenal. And they're continuing to do so. They're continuing to get better. And so I think that Pitt could definitely be a contender. And Yeah, I mean, it's so awesome. It's so cool to be able to talk about the ACC teams like this and talk about, just who's going to be in the postseason, and now all these teams are such big contenders, and it's not just the SEC, it's not just the Pac-12 anymore, and it's not just Oklahoma. So I'm excited for these teams.
Well, you're the perfect person to ask this because you played in the SEC. You were the SEC Freshman of the Year. You went and moved to the ACC. So you know the 2 leagues. You've had success in both leagues. Compare, how close is the ACC to where the SEC is? What's the gap like? What is the differences that you see in the 2 conferences? Because you've experienced both.
So I'm not going to lie. When I first got into the ACC, I remember thinking, just that it wasn't going to be as hard. I thought that, I was going to kind of come in and dominate a little bit. And I mean, I did well, but that was not the case at all. Like, these teams really proved me wrong, and I'm glad they did. I'm glad that, that's what my experience was. And I think, with the SEC, every single team that you face every single weekend is really, really hard. Like, it's a challenge. It's a challenge every series. Rarely do you get sweeps. And if you do, it's honestly probably because the other team just didn't play their best. It wasn't because you were that much better than that team. And so when I got to the ACC, I knew that there were going to be some challenges. I knew, there were going to be a few here and there, but I didn't think that it was going to be anything similar to what I experienced in the SEC. And it was. I mean, there was not a game that you could take off. Every single game, because, and I really think it was because every team in the ACC, wants to beat Florida State, because Florida State has had that reputation of winning the conference year after year after year and winning the title and all those things. So you always got everybody's best. And now it's getting to the point where each team is like a Florida State. So Clemson is right there with them. Duke is right there with them. They have that talent and the coaching. Virginia Tech, they're all right in there with it. And so I think that, maybe a few more teams, still need some to grow a little bit.
Sure.
But it's getting right there, like with the SEC.
So
Like it's just as competitive.
you think it's really close that
I
maybe
do.
people think, and obviously you have the ACC network, SEC network, both
Mm-hmm.
networks there. You obviously there's the stream with SEC network plus. There's a lot of similarities there in the facilities. I've been told, and you can speak to the ACC facilities have taken a big step in that regard, kind of like what the SEC did many years ago. You've traveled over the ACC. Is that accurate with the
It
facilities?
is. It is. I mean, I got, to go down to Florida State and do some games, this past weekend. And the new facility that Florida State has is just phenomenal. Like it makes me so proud to be an alumni there. Like the additions that they've been able to add to that field and other additions that they're going to continue to add. I know Clemson, like it's new, all of it's new, but I mean it's so nice. Like their facilities are so nice and everything is just continuing because the ACC wants to compete. Like they want to have those nice facilities so that they can continue to get these recruits. And it's really become something that's awesome and a step forward, I think, for just women's sports in general, being able to have these super incredibly nice facilities. I know, like when we went to Pitt, even I was like shocked, kind of by just how nice their stuff was, and it really made me happy to see those things.
We're speaking with Caylan Arnold here on In the Circle. We're going to talk about your broadcasting, how you got to broadcasting in a moment. But I want to start at the beginning. How did you get into playing softball? What got you into playing softball?
So, gracious. So go back to 4 years old playing t-ball, I guess. If you want to go all the way back to the beginning, softball really wasn't my main sport, though. I was a big basketball player. I wanted to play basketball in college. And so softball was always just kind of something I did outside of basketball season. Wasn't anything I really focused on. I only practiced it during softball season. And I didn't love it like I loved basketball until I got to high school. I quit softball actually several times, and my mom kept making me play. She kept forcing me to play. But we moved from West Tennessee to East Tennessee my freshman year of high school. I wasn't going to play softball. My mom made me because she thought it would be a good way for me to make friends at a new school. And so I did. I remember I tried out in basketball shorts and a basketball shirt and didn't even own a pair of softball pants, but made the team. And I had started pitching when I was 10, but like I said, I quit several times, never something I really focused on. I actually started out, I played center field. That was my spot. I loved playing outfield. And so that was where I wanted to be. Our JV pitcher got injured. She needed to have hip surgery. And so they were like, can anybody pitch JV? I was like, I can throw a fastball. Don't really know where it's going to go, but I can throw it really hard. And they were like, that's good. That's fine. Good enough for JV. So I started pitching for JV and it was awesome. And I loved it and just fell in love with the sport at that point. Still loved basketball, but softball just kind of took over. It was crazy. And I just found it, I don't even know, it was just became my passion out of nowhere. And so I started taking pitching lessons. And after that, it was, I mean, that's all it took. And so I was very far behind everybody else, though. So I had to really, work hard. I think I pitched every single day to get to where I was at. And my sophomore year, actually, I committed to MTSU, was committed to play there. Yeah. And I remember I just kept getting better and better and better. And I remember kind of sitting down with my parents and saying, like, I think that I could go bigger. I think I could go play at the highest level. And they said, we think you can too. And so I decommitted from MTSU. And then literally like a few weeks later, I talked with Heather Tarr at Washington. She called me, and then Florida State, and then I talked a little bit with Coach Lawson at Kentucky, and then I talked to Tennessee, and so it was just all kind of like a snowball effect from there. I was a junior in high school at that point. And so at that, before they didn't have the rule where you couldn't talk to anybody until their junior year. So I was really far behind because most people had committed like before sophomore year, freshman year. But went on some visits and yeah, and so I ended up picking Tennessee because I was 30 minutes from the campus. It was home to me. That's where my family was. I have two little sisters. I wanted them to be very much a part of my journey, and I wanted to be a part of their lives as much as I could still. So yeah, so that's my story. It's a long story.
No, it's really
Sorry.
good though. It's a really good story. That's why the beauty of the podcast. That's
Yeah.
a pretty good list there. What was it like playing at Tennessee? And in particular, I'm curious, did you ever meet Monica Abbott? Because as you know, when you wear that Vol colors, that name pops up. That's part of the legacy, as Monica Abbott just recently retired. So what was that like to wear those colors, especially you growing up in Tennessee? I don't know if that was something that you thought of with Monica Abbott and all that. You might have also been thinking about Pat Summitt too, because that's a big deal in Tennessee as well. So you had a lot of emotions there. What was that like?
So I did get to meet Monica. She came while I was there, my 3 years there. She came twice, so I got to meet her twice. It's pretty cool because I had a picture with her when I was 12 years old, and so I got to take another picture with her, and I thought that was really cool. I posted them to my social media, and it was I don't even know how many years apart that was, but getting to see kind of like me and my little travel ball uniform at 12 years old with Monica, and then years later in my Tennessee uniform with Monica, and getting to play at the same place that she did, that was really, really cool. Full circle moment. Yeah, and I mean, I got to meet some of my best friends there. I'm getting married in October, and Maddie Moss is one of my bridesmaids. Jenna Holcomb is one of my bridesmaids. So, two of my teammates at Tennessee, and two of my best friends in the world that I got to meet there. I learned so many valuable lessons while I was there, and it was really amazing being from this area and getting to show people like that it doesn't matter like where you're from, like you can reach your goals, and you can play for Tennessee if you want to, if you work hard enough. And so it was really cool though, getting to have my friends and my family this close to me, and get to experience all of my games and all of the other things that I got to do while I was there.
Sounds like you had a good time there. Had success. You were an all freshman. You won freshman of the year in the SEC. You were top 25 for freshman of the year nationally. You were an all region pitcher your next year. I know you had some injuries too. I think you had to deal with a little bit nagging stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So I injured my back my sophomore year. I pulled or strained, I guess, both of the muscles that run along my lower back, which was a big deal because you have to use your lower back to pitch. And so it was in a fall game, and I couldn't even hardly walk off the field. I looked like an old lady, like trying to get off the field. And so I had to wear a back brace my sophomore year to help keep me stable. And a lot of people don't know that because it was underneath my uniform. But yeah, I wore a back brace pretty much that whole sophomore year. And so that was something that was a challenge for sure while I was there. And it's crazy, like you don't even realize how many people are injured and still playing. Maddie Moss had two like bulging discs, that she had to fight through. Abby Lockman, she was in like a full shoulder brace thing, like trying to catch. And then, when I was at Florida State, there were so many people like that as well. Danny Morgan, she had to get epidural shots, in her back to be able to play. So just the stuff that we put our bodies through to be able to play the sport that we love is pretty crazy.
Yeah, and softball is kind of like hockey, where you don't relay that information unless you have to. And it's kind of
Right.
like it's kind of the unwritten, right? You kind of keep it under hush hush. You don't want to give away stuff to the opponent. It's kind of childish
Right.
stuff. Now people can kind of tell more. What was how hard was that decision to leave Tennessee to get enter the portal, because that was a big deal, obviously. That was right when the portal was starting to kind of explode at the time, and you just happened to be one of
Yeah.
the bigger names at the time, so it was huge. How difficult was that for you, because that's your right, that's your home state. It's not easy.
It was extremely difficult. It was the hardest decision I've ever made in my life, but it was something that I needed to do for me. And that is something that's hard to explain to a lot of people. But it was what I needed to do to, benefit myself, and get myself, in a place where I felt like I could be my best version of me. And so it was by far the hardest decision I've ever made in my life, leaving my family and my friends and my boyfriend, now fiance at the time. So that was, yeah, extremely, extremely difficult. And like you said, the portal it was brand new. Like Sam Shao was actually, I think, the first like really big name to use it. And
Yep.
she used it in the fall. And then I used it in the spring right after the end of the season. So it was new. Nobody really knew kind of how it worked or what it did, or like, did you like did you have to go through the coaches? Did you not? Could you really go anywhere you wanted to? Because, before, coaches really got to have kind of a say in where you got to go,
Sure.
and you didn't have to do that anymore. And so that was a big deal. But I remember watching Sam at the World Series when she was at OSU, and just um, how different she looked, versus when I played against her at Texas A&M, and just an overall different person and different player. And I just remember thinking like, okay, that's pretty cool. Like seeing, how that change affected her. And so it was crazy though. It was pretty crazy.
What was it like being in the portal during that time? What was that process like for you? Once, because you don't, I mean, you're entering, but you don't really know what's coming, right? You're kind of hoping for certain things. You're obviously, people reach out, but what's that like?
It was so weird because I really didn't know how it worked.
Yeah.
It was, all I had to do was really go to, the compliance office or whoever it was that I talked to and say like, hey, I want to go into the portal. I had to sign a little thing. And, then they put me in there and they put my contact information in there. And I didn't know that either. I thought that, those people would just have access to my email, but they had access to my phone number as well somehow. And so I was,
Oh, jeez.
I was getting I was getting a lot of emails, and just random phone calls, from people, and honestly, it was thinking back on it, like I became very emotional because I didn't realize really just how many people would want me, if that makes sense. It was like a kind of a confidence booster, like, because I heard from a lot of schools that I never in a million years would have thought, that they would want me. So I thought that was extremely cool. But I kind of knew from the get-go because, in high school, it came down between Tennessee and Florida State. And actually, in high school, when I called Coach Alameda and told her that I wasn't going to come to Florida State, I cried, because I loved her that much, just from the short
Sure.
amount of time that we had spent, in the recruiting process. And so I remember telling my parents, if Florida State reaches out to me, like, they're probably going to be the ones that I go with. Like they're going to be a top contender for sure. And lucky for me, they still wanted me. So I thought that was pretty cool. And it felt like a full circle moment. Because, Coach Alameda had told me, um, it was similar with Katie Dack this year. She had kind of come down between Texas A&M and Florida State, and she chose A&M, and then they lose their coach, and she goes back into the portal, and then Florida State still wants her, and coach has said that it was kind of like her coming home almost, like she just took a little detour, but now she's home. And that's kind of how I feel about it. Took a little detour, learned a lot of lessons, met a lot of cool people, but I came home eventually. And so that's kind of how it was for me.
Well, and that's you highlight a very important aspect now about relationships. Just because a player doesn't go to that school recruiting doesn't mean that that relationship still could matter down the road. If that's very, very interesting. It's always important to kind of keep those relationships and not burn bridges. And in either
For
side,
sure.
for either side, either
For
side.
sure.
Because
And I mean, that's one reason why every single school that reached out to me, it didn't matter who it was, every single school, I responded to them and I thanked them for reaching out to me and, thanked the coach for their interest in me. But, that I was going to go with Florida State. And I had a lot of coaches actually respond to me and say, wow, like, thank you for responding. Like, we really appreciate that. And so I was like, yeah, I mean, if you're interested enough to contact me and you want me on your team, you think I would benefit your team, that means a lot to me. So that was a big deal. And I wanted to let them know, that I appreciated them.
is that advice you would give players now moving forward in the portal, is to not burn bridges from that standpoint and make sure it's the right move for you? Because there are a lot of student athletes, not just in softball. I mean, softball, sure, but I mean, now the other sports are finding this out the hard way. Football, it's funny now. Football's getting all this backlash, or really softball is kind of laughing. It's like, hey, we started, we've been there, done that. But like, there's a lot of athletes that do enter the portal and maybe don't have a hard time finding a home. You were one of the fortunate ones that were able to. What advice would you give student athletes moving forward?
Yeah, definitely don't burn any bridges because you never know. You don't know what the future holds and you don't know like whether even if it doesn't involve you like becoming a part of that coach's team per se, you may want to go into coaching, and that person may be the person who you're interviewing with. And same thing, when it comes to whether or not, you need them for just any reason, any reason. So you don't want to burn bridges. When it comes to recruiting, I always tell the girls, that I work with, because I give pitching lessons, like talk to everybody, talk to the coaches, talk to the staff, talk to current players, talk to alumni. That was something that I made sure that I did with Florida State, because even though I knew that I loved Coach Alameda and Coach Wilson, I wanted to make sure that it was going to be what I thought it was going to be. And so I reached out to Jesse Warren, I reached out to Megan King, and I was like, tell me about your experience. Like, is it really the way that they say that it is? Like, I want to know. And both of them were like, yes, you're going to love it, it's awesome, coach is amazing, all that stuff. And it was true. So but I wanted to make sure, I wanted to make
Sure.
sure that I was really going to get the experience that I was looking for. And so that was really cool. But yeah, just talk to everybody, don't burn any bridges, try to be as respectful as possible, and make sure you ask a lot of questions and talk to as many people as you can.
Your run at FSU was unique. Your first year at FSU got interrupted by this thing called COVID,
Mm-hmm.
which put everything in jeopardy for you. You did end up getting, just like a lot of every student athlete did, get an extra year because of that. So you were able to come back in 21. 21 was an interesting year. People were wondering, is Florida State, why are they down, quote unquote, by their standards, right? Because you didn't win, like you mentioned earlier, you didn't win the ACC, which was like a shock to people. But then you make that postseason run, you win the regional, hosting the Tallahassee regional, beating a really good UCF team in 21. Then get to the Supers on the road, you beat LSU, get to the and then get win away of the national championship. Describe your time in Tallahassee.
So it's crazy. I know, just thinking about everything that we went through in 2020. We laugh like the seniors that I graduated with. Just we felt like we were on a road straight downhill. The way that season kind of had started, we really weren't vibing as a team. Chemistry was way off. We were struggling hitting, and so that was something that we were trying to work through. And so honestly, like COVID, it was terrible for, many reasons, but it was good kind of for us because we were able to turn things around and we were actually able to build this incredible relationship as a team that I've never experienced with any other team. And it's because of the work that we put in during the pandemic and the lockdown. Like we were having constant, Zoom calls with each other, and we were trying to make it fun. Like we were dressing up, and like the Zoom calls were themed, and like we were doing Zoom morning workouts with each other, like waking up at 6 a.m., turning on Zoom and working out with each other, and doing all these different things, trying to stay connected. And I actually came home. I was home for a little bit, right when the season got canceled, but then I decided to go back to Tallahassee for the rest of the summer because I had more resources in Tallahassee to continue to work and pitch and do all these things than I did back home. And so that's what I did. I went back and lived in Tallahassee. I got a puppy, so it was just me and him chilling in Tallahassee and working out and pitching and doing all those things to try and prepare for that 2021 season. And it was really incredible what we were able to do as a team, because like you said, we weren't the Florida State team that most people were used to seeing. Like Florida State was known for being, a powerhouse offensively. I think that, Kat and I and Danielle did a really good job of, holding it down pitching wise. But offensively, we were really just trying to find any way to win. And it was really cool to see, and it was very stressful as a pitcher, trying to hold a team to one run or to no runs, so that your team could come out and kind of, we would say, like, scratch that last run and do whatever we could to try and win. A lot of small ball, a lot of gap hits, little dinker bloop hits, to get people in, a lot of base running, a lot of aggressive base running, which is something that Florida State is known for. And that's how we did it. And it was crazy. And I remember, like, at the World Series, we made it to the championship game against Oklahoma, and they called in me and Sydney Sherrill to do the post-game press interview. And I remember Sydney looked at me and she just smiled and she was like, we might actually win this thing. Like, because none of us had really, thought about it up until that point. We just
Sure.
knew we were doing whatever we could to continue playing with each other. And yeah, and I just remember, like, laughing with her and thinking, like, yeah, like, we really could. And we almost did. And it's something that I would not trade. I wouldn't trade that experience for anything in the world.
Well, and I think I'm selling you short, because didn't you all come out of the losers bracket? Both you and Oklahoma came out of the losers bracket, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly, because you lost to UCLA, I want to say, that
we
first game.
did. We did. We lost that first game to UCLA. And Coach Alameda, like, made a joke about every year they make it to the World Series and Florida State always loses the first game, and she doesn't understand why. But yeah, because the year that they won in 2018, they lost the first game and came up out of the losers bracket. So
Yep.
I don't know what it is, but it's something about, like, that fight, I guess, having your backs against the wall, that Florida State really excels at. And so it was just the World Series, like, is one of the most amazing things that I've ever gotten to experience. Just that atmosphere, and like funny. When we were playing against Oklahoma, I felt like the entire state of Oklahoma was at that game, because it was like our little tiny Florida State, section of parents and some alumni. And then it was just like everybody else was Oklahoma, and the stadium, it felt like it shook, when they did that Boomer Sooner chant. And it was, I mean, crazy, but, like, I was so happy to be in that environment. And I'm like, I don't even care what the outcome is. This is just so cool, like, to be here.
Well, and the getting there was impressive, getting there, because you had to come out, as I mentioned, the losers bracket game. And I'm trying to remember who you beat in the opener, but the one that I remember is you had to beat Oklahoma State, and that was controversial because of the start time. Because
Yeah.
what was it? You guys started, what, 11:30 midnight local?
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
that turned out to be a pretty historic game, because that's caused the change in the schedule since that we saw last year in the World Series. What was that like to wait that long? Because you had won a game earlier to advance. In fact, you guys were the ones that ended Mike Condrea's career, if I'm not mistaken. Arizona. So your team is just full of historic stuff there going on.
I know. And I mean, yeah, it was incredible. I started that game because I had a really great series against Oklahoma in the regular season. And yeah, it was ridiculous because, I mean, that team had so many just insane players on it. Jesse Harper was on that team. Deja Mulipolo was on that team, just incredible softball players. And so we won that game, and then OSU, we had that rain delay, and we just kept waiting and waiting and waiting. And we were like, this is crazy. Like, there's no way they're going to make us play this late. There's no way. And then they did. And we were like, oh my gosh. But it was fun. We got back to, our hotel around like 2:30 in the morning, 3. We still hadn't eaten, so we had to eat something shower, go to bed. We probably all got in bed around like 4 a.m. And then unfortunately, a lot of us had COVID testing the next day. So we had to be there at 9 a.m. for COVID testing. And I remember, so we have Whoop bands, which a lot of colleges are utilizing those, and they're kind of like a Fitbit, where they tell, your sleep, and they tell your strain, how well your body has recovered. And every single person on our team that next morning, their recovery was in the red. It was low. And it goes green, yellow, red, and we were all in the red. So Coach Alameda, she took a picture of that and she sent it to, a bunch of important people and was like, this is what, our girls are coming out today playing on. Like, this is the recovery that they have, and it's not fair. And so that was something that I'm actually really proud to be a part of, that we were able to, incite some sort of change in the World Series. And now they've added on, the 2 extra days for rain delays and for other things. So, I would like for it to get to a point where, there aren't any double headers, and, the girls get a lot more rest and off days and things like what the Baseball World Series has. But, slowly but surely, I think we'll get there eventually, hopefully.
Yeah, no, step by step. But yeah, you beat Arizona, which turned out to be Mike Condrea's last game. Because you're right, I forgot you played Arizona during the regular season. I forgot you played them in Tallahassee, and you actually pitched well
Yes,
against them during the season.
did.
So that makes sense. You had the Oklahoma State game. Then you got to play Alabama. You got to beat them twice. You beat them. And I believe they changed the schedule where you didn't have to play them twice the same day. You played them, you beat them, and you forced an if necessary game for the next day.
Yes,
You
thankfully.
beat them again.
Yeah.
You come back, beat Oklahoma first game. Unfortunately, they didn't work out. But I mean, that was, people have said that probably is the greatest offense that's ever been built. And you kind of did a good job holding them. I mean, that was a lot of people feel like that's one of the greatest World Series of all time. Do you feel that as being a part of it?
I mean, it was definitely something special. It was, like I said, just incredible to be a part of. Danielle Watson pitched that first game against Oklahoma and did phenomenal. Catherine came out and pitched that second game, and I think she pitched a really great game as well. Our plan against Oklahoma was to keep it low and to kind of keep it away. And for me, I knew that I probably wouldn't pitch because I'm a upspin pitcher, rise ball, curveball, and that's what Oklahoma hits well. You don't really throw home run hitting teams rise balls. So I knew that I probably wouldn't pitch in that game, and if I did, it would just be kind of like if it was completely necessary. So I think I may have pitched a 1 inning or maybe 3 batters. I know I pitched to Jocelyn Allo, and she only hit a single off of me. So that is I'm very proud of that.
All right. I'm glad you shared this, because I was kind of shaking my head. It's like, why isn't Arnold pitching more? Like, okay, so this makes, okay.
Part of the plan, we wanted to keep the ball down, wanted to keep the ball in the park. And so we pitched Danielle, who threw a pretty good drop ball, and we pitched Kat, who we know has a fantastic drop ball. And, I think that second game, it just really came down to a few plays. I think if a few things would have gone our way, we would have won that game. So, but that's how it goes, and, but yeah, it was a very, very special experience. And, I mean, pitching against that Oklahoma team, the few players that I did get to pitch against was pretty ridiculous. Just the presence that they have in the box and how they swing the bat it was something.
It was special World Series, one of the best World Series ever. You all were a big part of that. So you should be proud of that, on a great run, and part of the memories there. So your career comes to an end. Fast forward to 2022, and I'm kind of going around the streams, and I see you pop up in the booth. Take me through how did the broadcasting come about for you?
So it was something that I realized I wanted to do my junior year of college. So I went into college thinking that I wanted to be a dentist. That quickly changed when I realized how much I hate chemistry. And so I, kind of sat down and thought, well, what do I really enjoy? I love being creative. I love talking about softball. I actually really enjoy talking to the media, which was something that a lot of girls on our team didn't like doing. And I didn't really understand why, because I love talking about softball and talking about the game. And so I remember I called my mom and was like, well, what do you think about me like going into like sports broadcasting or journalism? And she was like, oh, I think you'd be great at that. And which she's my mom, she's supposed to say that, but um, so I changed my major to journalism. And, then when I transferred to Florida State, they didn't offer journalism as a class. So, or not a class, as a major. And so I ended up changing it to media communications, which was pretty much the same thing. And so I got my degree in that. And then, I reached out to Kirby Kander, who runs Seminole Productions at Florida State, and was like, hey, like next season, I want to be a part of this. I want to call the games. I want to, be in the booth. And he was like, great, we'd love to have you. And so that's kind of how it started. I also got in with one of the local high schools here. And I did softball for them. I did baseball for them, and I did basketball for them. Which was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed getting to do basketball because that was another passion of mine. I got to do a little bit of football. That one was harder though. Football was.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're going all gauntlet. You're not going exclusive softball here.
No, football was harder for me. But I love sports in general. Like I'm just a sports person. I love it all. And so football was harder for me though, because I've always been a football fan. I grew up an LSU football fan. My dog's name is Burrow. Like I love Joe Burrow. Big, yeah. So
Wow,
I'm
all
a
right.
big football fan. Yeah. But I didn't really know like the specifics of it, like
Sure.
the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all the positions and things like
Oh,
that.
it's a
So that was,
chaotic sport. There's
yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
players on the field. There's 11 offensive players, defensive
Yeah,
player. Yeah, no
it was
doubt.
crazy. It was
Yeah,
crazy. So I really did more sideline for them. That was
that
easier
makes
to where I
sense.
still got to answer the question or ask the questions and do that kind of stuff. So,
Did you like
but that
that?
was I did like that. I still got to, uh be a part of it all. I do like being in the booth more. I like doing play by play more. But I did enjoy being on the sideline. Um, so that was something, I was like, hey, I might as well try a little bit of it all and see what I really enjoy doing and have experience in all of it. And I did some internships previously over the summer with Softball America. So I wrote some articles for them while I was at Florida State. That was a lot of fun. I did some stuff for D1 softball. I know Rhiannon Potke really well,
Yeah.
who works for them, and so she had me while I was in Italy do vlog posts
Yeah. Yeah.
about kind of what it's like being a professional softball player in Italy, as an American, and that was a lot of fun. So I've kind of dabbled a little bit in a lot of different things, but being in the booth is something that I love doing and I'm very passionate about.
There's a lot I could tackle there. You've hit
Yeah.
my sweet spot there.
Yeah.
Because when I was thinking about going to schools between Florida State and UCF, and I didn't go to Florida State for a couple of reasons. Number one, Orlando, big city compared to
Hmm.
Tally. Number
Hmm.
two, they didn't offer journalism. That just
Yeah.
rang a bell because one of my idols was Gene Deckerhoff, who I'm sure you know,
Yes.
longtime
Yes.
voice of Florida State. When they didn't have that, I'm like, I'm just gonna go to UCF. I don't regret it. It was fun, but you just hit me with like a memory lane back in my
Yeah.
recruiting days with that comment about they still don't have
They
journalism.
still
Anyway,
don't. Yeah.
oh man. So that's number one. Number two, could you see yourself like a Katie George, who is on ACC Networks, a former volleyball player, played center at Louisville, did the analyst role for the national championship this year in volleyball, does a lot of analyst work, but she does sideline for football, basketball. Is that something you want to shoot for? And instead of just saying, no, I'm not just going to do softball, I can do other stuff, maybe not as an analyst, but maybe sideline for other sports, and then analyst for softball. Is that what you're kind of shooting for?
That's something that I would love to do. Somebody that I actually, really look up to is Andrea Carter,
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
newer on the scene. But she does the same thing. She does she's an analyst, for basketball and a few other sports, but then she also does sideline. And so that's something that I think I could do as well. I just need, a little bit more experience on the sideline. I've gotten experience as an analyst more so than on the sideline, but yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. Like I said, I love sports, I love traveling, and I'd be in for anywhere that anybody wanted to put me.
Well, you're an all sports fan, so I like that. What did you learn about year one that you've applied to year two now of your broadcasting softball? What was something you learned you didn't know going in that you've now applied to year two?
um and I actually got a compliment for this the other day, so I was really happy about it. My first year, it was really, really hard separating myself from the team. So I kept wanting to say we and our and like all that stuff because I was still so close
Sure.
with the team. So that was something that was really hard. But I got complimented the other day when I was down there by one of the other production crew members, and she was like, "Oh, you do a really good job of staying separated from the team. Like you sound very non-biased and like third party." And I was like, "Oh, yes," because I was really
Sure.
working hard on that. That was something that I wanted to make sure that I did well, and just other little things, trying to expand my vocabulary a little bit, making sure I didn't say like the same things over and over again, and really trying to talk more so, about the other team, which is one reason why I'm going to be doing a few games this season for UNC as well, and I'm really excited about that because I won't have any kind of connection to either team. So it'll finally be like kind of a completely non-biased like game that I
Sure.
get to do, and so I'm really excited about that. But talking more so about the other team, other things that like they're doing well, not just what Florida State does well, with other team does well, and I think I've done a good job of that so far, and it's something that I want to continue doing. I would like to as well get a little bit more information, I think pregame from opposing teams. Like I know the Florida State girls. Like I stay with Coach Alameda when I'm down there, so I get a lot of backstory and a lot of
Sure. Yeah. 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 I know
information.
what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, that people wouldn't often get. But I would like to get a little bit more of that from opposing teams. So, talking maybe more so with the girls or whoever before the games, or get a little bit of a deeper dive with the coaches when we have our interviews with them and things like that.
Oh well, you and I will talk off air. I can help you with that.
Okay, great, great.
I'll definitely give you some thoughts there, but it is important, like being neutral, because you know this. When you were a player, you would probably watch. A lot of times, your families would watch games on the stream, and it would be a little one-sided. On the other, it'd
Mhm.
be a little annoying. So you probably appreciate that coming from a player standpoint. Like, hey, and that's one of the things I pride myself with play-by-plays. Make sure both sides get equal love, right? Like
Yeah,
even
yeah.
like and the players, and showcase that. And I think that brings more eyeballs to that particular broadcast if they tune in. It's like, oh, that's interesting. I'm learning stuff about both sides, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's something that I really want to focus on because like you said, I've definitely watched some games where it was completely one-sided, or watched games that I've played in where you could tell like, yeah,
Sure.
they didn't want us to win that game.
Right,
There's
or
a
didn't even
thing.
do any prep. Like they don't,
Right, right.
that's kind of frustrating. So, and especially when it's a national landscape now, because all these streams are
Right.
national now.
Right.
People are watching, and obviously with the product now, you split time doing Florida State games with Alex Powers, who's a friend of mine,
Mhm.
who I work with as well, who does some games with me from time to time, and Tiffany Brown, I believe, does games there
Yes.
as well. And then the play-by-play guys, I believe, are Sean Salisbury and Davidson, I believe. If you got
Yes, Sean
okay,
Davidson, yeah.
there you go. See, I memorized it. Very good.
Yeah, good
Uh,
job.
but what's that like working with all those people? And do you reach out to an Alex Powers who's done this for a while? Do you pick their brain a little bit? Jessica Burrows actually started. I don't know what's in the water in Tally. You all trying to do broadcasting.
I guess so. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Alex and I, cause when she's down there, sometimes, we'll talk cause we'll both be staying with Coach. And so, we'll sit up and we'll kind of talk about things and different things that we're doing. And, I've talked with, I've been with Sean Davidson a lot, play by play. He's usually who I'm paired with, and I love him. I think he's great. So I've asked him a lot of questions. I've reached out to pretty much anybody and everybody that's in this industry that I can get feedback from. So I've talked with Amanda Scarborough, I've talked with Maddie Shipman, Danielle Laurie, I've talked with Beth Mowens, I've talked with uh, Michelle, I've talked with like everybody,
That's good.
Sherry Kempf, like I mean anybody and everybody I've talked to try and get just tips and tricks and everything that I possibly can get from the people who have been there and done that for a while. I sent my reel from last year to Sherry Kemp. She watched it. She gave me some really great feedback on it, things that I need to improve on. So it's been really, really good. And I've been very blessed to um, get to talk with the people that I've gotten to talk with, and who've looked at my reel and who've looked at my work. And Amanda Scarborough watched one of my games and gave me feedback on it and things like that. So just really, really cool people.
No, that's good, and you're hitting the right people. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Scarborough's one of the best in the
Yeah.
country, and what's cool too. I mean, I take pride in our state because I think we have great broadcasts throughout the state with what you all are doing at Florida State, Florida with Francesca and Aya doing there with Kyle Crooks. I work with Francesca doing UCF games. I mentioned Alex Powers helps us on the UCF games. South Florida has Ryan Urquhart, Alex. It's great to highlight this state because you know this now. This state's rich on softball. They talk football in the fall, but softball state, and I think everybody's doing a great job in the state providing those pictures and describing that for all the programs.
Definitely. Softball is huge in Florida. And I mean, it's really cool. Like, it comes from, the high school level through travel ball and all of those things. Like there's some really, really great programs down in Florida. And then going into college, really, really great programs and great broadcasting. Like you said, I love the productions that go on at the universities, all throughout there. So it is very rich, and I'm very grateful and thankful and blessed to be able to be a part. First time last year being my first year, getting to step into a production team that is very professional and with Seminole Productions, and I got to learn a lot of really valuable information early on.
Well, we look forward to seeing you doing more Florida State games, more North Carolina games, as you mentioned. So you'll be all over the ACC map, among others, this year. So this will be our last question as I get you back to the analyst hat. What's going to be the keys this season for whoever comes out on top in the ACC? What are a couple of ingredients that you think will be keys in deciding who is the ACC champion in 2023?
Oh man. So I think, each team, it's going to really come down to obviously pitching. Pitching's got to be strong. You've got to be able to keep the ball in the park. You've got to keep the score low, got to keep people off bases. So low number of walks. And I think a lot of teams have young pitching staffs. Like really the only team that has experienced pitching staffs is Clemson. Like, they got Valerie Cagle and Millie. Like those are the only two really that, have been there, done that. The rest of them are all kind of learning. So I think a lot of freshmen in the circle growing up quickly to be able to make a difference for these teams. And then hitting wise, keeping the power numbers high, which is something, that I think the ACC, I would like for them to be a little bit more known for power numbers, hitting, home runs, things like that. And then base running. I think base running is a huge deal. Florida State, like I said, has been known for base running, but just being really, really aggressive on the base paths, taking that extra base, stealing, scoring in those high stakes situations, doing things like that. And then I think the ACC is really young this year. Like I said, I think they've just got a lot of teams that have young players on them. So a lot of girls really growing up quickly and maturing and being there for their team.
Should be a fun year in the ACC. Should be fun listening to you all year long. Caylan Arnold here on In the Circle. Thank you for doing this. It was great to have this lengthy chat with you. I always feel like we put you on 2 live shows and just put you on the hot seat there talking about current stuff. But it was good to get to know your career, your story, because it's a fascinating story. We'll definitely have you back on throughout the season and around the postseason. You'll be helping us out with that. But in the meantime, good luck the rest of this season, and we look forward to hearing you. Where can people follow you?
So you can follow me on Instagram. I have an Instagram. My handle, really quick, let me pull that up. My Instagram handle, it'll load. Is Caylan Arnold 12. Just making sure I want to tell you the right thing. Caylan Arnold 12. TikTok is a big one for me now. So I'm posting at least once a week content about softball, talking about different things going on in the softball world at least once or twice a week. So my TikTok handle is Caylan_Arnold 12. So you can follow me there. And then I also have a Twitter where I often live tweet games that I'm watching, which that one's different. It is Arnold Caylan. So, but you can pretty much find me, type in Caylan Arnold, it'll probably show up. But yeah, but TikTok is a big one right now because like I said, I am posting once or twice a week live talking about softball.
And I guess that she'll be on all year long on ACC Network Extra, doing games in Tallahassee, doing in Chapel Hill. So that'll be a lot of fun there as well. Caylan, we'll talk to you soon. But thanks for talking to us and talking and being candor as always, being honest and breaking, talking about everything with us.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it. I love being on this podcast.